Okay, this video it's going to be perhaps unnecessary for a lot of people, but there's a circular reference that arises when you have a um, facility, a debt facility that is in a foreign currency or a different currency than you're modeling. In this case, our debt facility is in USD, and we're going to put an interest rate. This interest rate in USD is a lot lower than the interest rate in rupee, Indonesian rupee, I think, or I hope. Here's the interest rate. Okay, now we know how much we need. We've done the whole modeling in kind of one currency, but here's the problem. Because of a difference in inflation, if you have a difference in inflation, one currency versus the next, the minimum thing you should do is make a kind of a purchasing power parity assumption. Okay, and where did I put the purchasing parity? Here. So we shouldn't really leave the exchange rate constant. We should, if we have a higher inflation in 7% here in Indonesia and 1%, 0.5% in US, the exchange rate might change for a multitude of other reasons, but one of those certainly would be the difference in inflation. Okay, so at minimum we should kind of have the inflation rate changed. And again, that red thing comes because I've still got a red sheet here. Now, if you do this, here's the problem. You know how much money you need. We put everything, made all of our adjustments in the other sheet. We put all of our adjustments. If we had to buy something in USD, we put it in rupiah. If we had to buy something, we did all of that, and we get our funding needs somewhere down here. This is the cash funding needs. And then we're going to take that and we're going to figure out how much equity we need. Okay, I don't know why I have such a high amount of equity. Let's make that to 70% debt, so we have 30% equity. There, now I'd have to run our copy and paste macro. It's not that bad, the copy and paste macro, okay? I'm not saying it's all that bad. And then what we're going to try to do is make that copy and paste macro into a function. Okay, now when we make this, when we work on the function, here's the problem. Here's the problem. Here's the circular reference. I know how much I need in rupee, but the amount I need in USD only comes after I've readjusted this, and part of this where I've just said, okay, let's take a rupee, divide it by the exchange rate. Okay, I divided it by the exchange rate, get how much you need in USD, and then everything's in USD, and we need to know this debt commitment in USD, but the debt commitment comes from the total amount of the draws, which in turn, upstairs, depend on the interest during construction, fees paid, DSRA, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you can't just sum this draws. That gives you a circular reference, and you need that amount of draws, the total amount of the debt commitment in USD to, I guess, I don't know if you really need it to compute the interest during construction, but you certainly need it to compute the fee percent, the upfront fee percent, and it's certainly extremely helpful in computing the here the repayments, and finally the DSRA. So one method is simply to create a little copy and paste. So we fix this, we compute the total amount of the draws, and we include this difference in the copy and paste macro. Look how simple the copy and paste macro is compared to our, oh shit, our function. So here's why people don't use the function. It certainly is not easier, and I can certainly understand an argument of somebody saying, don't bother with that crap. But remember, if we don't have a function, every time we have to run this, I suppose we can attach these, but if you were optimizing and figuring out a goal seek on the PPA tariff, or God knows what, some other kind of negotiating with the banks, then you really couldn't run. You'd have to run the copy and paste macro, change something, run it again, change something, and you'd never kind of get to an optimization. You never get to use the model for really what you want to use it for. So that's the reason for having these things. Now, let's go through this. Okay, so I put up here, I called this project cost 1. We have a slightly different one this time. The only difference is we're reading the exchange rate. Now remember, if you read the exchange rate in as a series, as an array, as a vector, every time you put this in, where's the exchange rate? Every time you, come on, can I even find it yet? Just a minute. Excuse me. This should be called project cost 1, perhaps, and this one we'll leave because I finally got that to work. I'm going to leave that as project cost. Now there are going to be two things that happen. Okay, so this is our old one, this is our new one, and at some point we're going to have to define project cost 1. Okay. And I'm going to put project cost 1 equal. For now, I'm just going to call it output. You'll see why. Okay, now, unlike the other variable, okay, so this time, excuse me, this time, every time we did something, I had debt commitment. Where's my... Oh, just a minute. No, don't worry. Here's the IDC in the US. Now, I don't know why I put this here because we don't need it. So here's what we do. We compute our everything in US dollar, in our US dollars. Let me stop the video a minute. I might have just messed something up. Okay, well, I had it backwards. Excuse me for that. So the second one is project cost 1. And in this case, and by the way, I had to name the first one project cost 2 because if you define something like project cost, it'll look for a function. So you've got to be a little careful with the naming. Okay, so we got this, and we go through all this crap, which a lot of it looks complicated, but it's really just going through exactly what we did in Excel. But this time the IDC is on the US balance and undrawn debt is the US balance. But again, remember that undrawn debt, that US debt commitment, that comes from, that's a circular reference in itself. So that's the painful part of this whole thing, okay? The upfront fee is based on the debt commitment. The debt service is based on the debt commitment in the US dollars. And IDC is... now, once we do this, suppose I could put recompute in the base currency. We can only have one currency for the model, so that's what we're doing with all of these things, okay? Can I copy this? All right. Maybe I have to put it like this, okay? So what we're doing is we're doing everything in USD and then putting it back in base currency. I know that sounds like kind of going backwards and forwards, but you have to do that. And then then we have our fee 2 and our fee 1 and all the same kind of things we had in the last one. Okay, and then we put our draws in, and we figure our draws in the base currency. But then this is the big thing: we have to put our draws into US, and then when we put our draws into US, we just increment the US loan. So this is all exactly what you should have in a model where you have two currencies. Now this is the big thing. We have to recompute USD loan after in each iteration, and then we also have to do it. We recompute project cost in each iteration. Now, this is the hard part. Then, project cost 2 is going to have two things. We're going to have a output, okay, and we haven't defined the output yet, but the output is going to be a dimension. So DIM output as 2, it's got two variables, and then we put as variant into the top of the function. Now what we're doing, I should have said this just before I started doing this. I have this habit when I can't remember exactly what I'm doing sometimes to do it and then tell you instead of telling you and then doing it, which would be far better in terms of explanation. But if we want this function to be an array function, number 1, define it as variant. Number 2, put some sort of output variable. It doesn't, of course, have to be named output. And then number 3, we'll put output 1 is equal to project cost, which we have been computing before, and output 2 is equal to debt commitment US. Okay, and then now we have our situation where we've resolved two different circular reference items in one go. Okay, and when we then, now to make this function work, we select two of them, we press Shift F3, and then everything's still the same, except, of course, I want to put this project cost 1, okay, and then Shift F3, and then we now need to put in the exchange rate. And you might think, well, why did he go through that crap where we introduced this, where we allowed you to put a whole line in? I hope you agree that this is a lot easier way to do things rather than to have to go down and press the F4 and all this. No, it didn't work. Well, F2, Shift Control Enter. So this was supposed to be the loan in USD. Okay, and now I have to do the painful part, which I'm not going to do together with you, but I'm going to go and fix the the macro, it looks like I didn't set something to 0. It looks like we replicated something, but that illustrates how to make a function, and it illustrates the problem of a circular reference with multiple currencies. And now the hell. And I'm just gonna, well, I'll pause the video. Maybe I'll show you when it's finished. Okay, I think it's worth showing you a couple of things. When you, here's the problem. I had to, since the DSRA is computing from next period's debt service rather than this period, I had to adjust the exchange rate by 1 period plus 1. That was one of the things that was messing me up, and the other thing is I had forgotten to, up here, reset the balance to 0. Okay, I think probably 1 or 2 more things here. But what really helps when you do this, especially if you have an array variable, you could imagine having 3 different array variables and put 1 extra one, like output number 3, just to test. So I changed this output number 1 just to DSRA, which was the problem, and then I can see exactly where the problem was. Okay, so this method of number 1 using a variant, number 2 putting an output variable, and number 3 assigning the output variable, when you're testing these things out, which if you're like me, you make errors all the time, maybe you don't. This is too long, but we have 2 different tranches. We have the equity tranche and the debt tranche, the 2 debt tranches, excuse me, and blah, blah, blah. And so now what we can do is press F2, redo this, Shift Control R, no, Shift Control Enter, excuse me, and I have all these little crap things here, but now we get exactly the same thing. And now, oh, this is so cool, hopefully, and watch me not work when I change it. If we change this to 80%, now the debt changes, and what we should have done is put this as our function. Okay, and hopefully, I think everything's okay. I don't know why this difference just now went to 0. It shouldn't have. And if we change this to 90%, okay, we still have, we get the new kind of debt. Let's put 70% back in here. And then if we have IDR being 30% or something, I think it was 20%. Okay, what we'd have to do is if you wanted to do the macro, we'd have to redo that. But you notice we get exactly the same result. So using the macro to test it out is not a bad thing. The copy and paste, and then you can resolve even these kind of fairly complicated things. This thing that comes from the USD fixed loan should be, by the way, now from our function, and everything should be automatic. Okay, and that's exchange functions with circular references from different exchange rates. Now I don't know where I'm going to put this model, but well, if I do, it would be, excuse me, it would be here. So you go to the featured project finance models. I'll put it here. Okay, and we'll also put it in the circular reference. Okay, so that'll be the places that you can find the workbook. And I hope you, if you don't do this, at least you understand the difference between using the copy and paste macro and the function method. And that's, I'm going to stop the macro right now.